Happy SJ Tuesday. How are you guys doing? We are very, very excited to be here today because we are going to play a game of Hollywood Executive, is what I'm calling it. Cut or release. We're going to talk about all the cuts, the death by 1,000 Snyder cuts, not in a bad way, in a good way, in an interesting, fun way for all of you and for all of us. Danielle Radford is here to help shepherd us through. It's beautiful to see you this Tuesday.
Good morning. Cuts. Everyone gets a cut of everything. I'm excited.
Well, Joe Starr pitched a cut this morning that I would certainly burn some things to see, but we will be talking about that later on today. And Spencer Gilbert is here, and maybe, just maybe, we'll get a visitation from Annie. I don't know. No. Okay. No, the answer is no. Very good.
Oh. But yeah, release the assembly cut of every film along with a copy of Premiere, and let us make our own cuts of everything.
Yes.
And then at the end of this, we all get bowl cuts.
we're going to get into the actual story here in a minute, but I will say, for those of you that have been to film school, you know that that's an actual exercise that you do. I got the raw footage for Temple of Doom and recut a scene. It was really fun, actually. It was a lot of fun. I also have some thoughts on how much the editor really did deserve an Oscar for that movie, which we can discuss when we're not on the air.
Release the Roth cut.
Yeah, release the Roth cut of Temple of Doom.
Yeah, I'm ready.
I think I might have it somewhere. We'll see. Okay. Probably like a ton of copyright issues involved with that. Death by 1,000 cuts. After the Snyder Cut became official last week, fans and outlets alike have continued the wave of release that cut for other movies. One was notably the David Ayer cut of the Suicide Squad, not surprisingly in the same universe, and it was a film that the director was not ultimately happy with, and some fans felt similarly. So here's what he said on Twitter. He said, "My cut would be easy to complete. It would be incredibly cathartic for me. It's exhausting getting your ass kicked for a film that got Edward Scissorhands treatment. The film I made was never seen." So everyone, discuss. First of all, what do you think that original cut was? And two, do you want to see it?
I feel like people have been talking about, as soon as like the release, the Snyder Cut became so big that they were buying banners and flying them over Comic-Con and putting up those bus side promotions. I started hearing about people talking about the Ayer cut and how it was different. And so it feels like the next natural one for people to say, oh, well, if you're doing this, then definitely do that. Suicide Squad was not my favorite movie. It could be a case where seeing the director's full-on vision makes it something that makes it better and makes more sense. Again, I've said before, the Watchmen, the Snyder, like the director's cut of Watchmen, to me makes it a better and more full movie. Maybe it would have done that with Suicide Squad. It sounds like they were adding in more kind of character stuff and relationships, and I do feel like that was something that was missing a lot from the movie. So it could be good, but I'm not scratching at the bit for it. If it happens and it's on an HBO Max, yeah, I'll totally watch it for that weekend. Everyone watches it.
You said there was more character stuff, Danielle. Is there any info of what got cut from the movie?
There is, and I think I will talk about that later.
Oh, okay then.
Yeah.
A preview to a later on game that will be coming. Well, one thing that we know for sure, Spencer, is that the tone of the movie is very different than his other films. And we know that there was a trailer house that cut the trailers for Suicide Squad that people really liked, that basically came in and recut a lot of the movie. They matched the movie to the trailer, which is typically the opposite of what you want to do, but sure. So what do you think the tone of that movie might have been originally? And maybe was it just difficult to kind of like match his aesthetic to these very, very heightened characters?
I'm finding it hard to believe that there exists a good cut of this movie. And I just say that because I remember production being very rushed at the time, and hearing that like he had to write the script in 4 weeks and that's what they shot. So I get the feeling that it was kind of doomed from the start, unless the cut involves reshoots or something like that. Like if you're just shooting the first draft of a screenplay, like it's going to be sloppy.
That's fair enough. I mean, that brings up a totally different question, but I'm going to ask it to you, Joe Starr. I mean, there's no, I hear what you're saying where production, if it's rushed, is always going to, or almost always going to hurt. Not always, actually. Sometimes those confines help. But Joe, I mean, there's no official time that it should take to write a script.
No, but a little more time's always good. I can definitely see a difference in quality between like, oh hey, I in a real chill way wrote something in 4 weeks on my own, and a difference between that and I wrote something in 4 weeks while the top brass at Warner Brothers called me every hour asking for pages.
That's what I was going to say. I doubt that was chill at all. I was like, I don't think he had any chill in those 4 weeks.
Yeah, there were no CBD baths in that experience.
I bet there were lots. They just didn't help.
Yeah. I don't know about this here cut. I mean, I feel like we know what a David Ayer movie looks like. There's not vast differences in tone between things he's either directed or written. But would that have translated to like a really good comic book movie? I don't know. Like, does the pure I'm King Kong, just bleakness of David Ayer's world translate to Katana, and whether or not she has someone's back? I honestly don't know.
It is very clearly a movie that has been cobbled together. Like you can see the little pieces of tape holding it, like when Slipknot gets out of the van, and just in VO somebody says, "Oh, if it isn't Slipknot, the man who can climb anything." It's such a move of like it's just held together with putty and string and spit. And I guess I'm sure there's a more sensible cut you can make, as in it makes sense.
Yeah,
there's so many.
I'm sure that exists.
There's enough big swings in that movie, like just like the Leto of it all, that sort of overshadow like the little kernels that I really like in that movie. Because I do think that there are like maybe kernels of his movie that I dig. Like I like Captain Boomerang in that movie. He actually did a really good job. There's little bits I like. I like Harley. Will Smith's really solid in it. Maybe we learned a little more about the rest of the squad. Like there's
I don't think
bigger
you do.
swings.
I don't think you do.
There's bigger swings that I think you just don't get away from. Like the Jared Leto's Joker sucks. Like I don't know how to be diplomatic about it. It's such a stupid, boring character, and
Joe, he's damaged.
I don't know that like another 45 minutes of that stupid, boring, basic pitch take on the Joker like makes it better.
I like Sassy Joe today, though.
So sassy.
That I do
He
like.
is
Very sassy.
So forgetting that from the Suicide
Hunka.
Squad.
I wanna sit on that Jared Leto Joker takes lap and go and or I stab it or whatever.
Remember when we thought Common was going to be like an actor that we were going to have in things and we were going to do things to, and then he gets reduced to like hunka murder?
Oh.
Yeah.
Murder by a hunka.
He'll always have the gap.
He
An
does
AI.
do other things.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can rap about AI.
Yeah.
Microsoft.
Yes.
Drones. What are they?
How do they work?
Let me ask this, and then we're going to get right into our thank you, Ryan. Ryan clapped for that, Joe. We're going to get into our game. Our game is this: release or cut, and we're going to ask you, the commentators, the people here with us this morning, to go ahead and weigh in with your thoughts too. And I'll be going to Ryan to pull some of those out as well. But we're going to vote live right here to release or cut the cut from several notable cuts that we could have seen that will likely never get released. But on this one, Spencer, final question from you is, and I guess then we'll go, Danielle will set this up, what we do know, what we don't know, and if we should release or cut. Given the fact that you don't believe that there's an interesting cut in there, and yet he says there is, does that make you more curious to see what he has in his mind?
I don't know. I mean, yes, I did kind of hedge my bets by saying there is a more sensible cut in the sense that there is probably a movie in there with a beginning and a middle and an end that he could probably put out, which would by definition be better than what we got.
I do like it being marketed as the sensible cut.
A more sensible cut of Suicide
Release
Squad.
the sensible cut, yes.
So I think, I think there is a better version of this movie, but this just there can't be a radically different version of this movie on the cutting room floor. Just the action alone is set in stone. It's muddy. It's dark. It's just them shooting goons in a dark room, from what I recall. Like, is there a set piece that stands out for anyone from Suicide Squad?
I mean, yeah, but probably not in the way that's intended.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah, the wiggle dance, cut her heart out. And then just like
Axl Rose got all up in this movie.
Yeah. She looks like a glitch that didn't load all the way.
Yeah.
Like maybe she was supposed to be doing one of these and it just didn't she's like buffering.
A looped GIF. Yeah. But
scary how dope I am.
So I guess, look, yeah, it is. I'm always going to come down the side of a filmmaker, the person who created it should get their vision out there, or at least as close to it as they can get. But my hopes would be very low that it would make it like a movie that I would enjoy. That's all.
Okay. Well, I think we have your half vote, but we're going to still make you vote anyway. Danielle, set us up. Suicide Squad, release or cut.
Okay, so from what I have read and things they have said before, I don't think we're going to get more Leto in the Ayer cut. It sounds like a lot of the Leto stuff was just like, let him have it. Just like, let him do more Joker stuff, just Joker stuff over there. But something that we do know that we would have gotten is Diablo would have survived. So he wouldn't have had his big, death sequence. We would have seen him perhaps go on a journey where he accepts, what happened, but he has decided that he wants to move on and not so much Suicide Squad as a Live Squad. And then another thing that we had was Live Squad. Harley and Deadshot.
Yes. Oh, more than that.
they get together as a couple.
They do a special hug.
That was when mommy and daddies love each other very much. They get together or I guess it's Will Smith, so it's Zaddies.
Release the cut.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you for this demonstration of true grown-up love. But yeah, so that is one thing that would have happened.
Is that a doll of yourself, Joe?
No, it's this is the Robin Hood Prince of Thieves collection. Evan.
Who's the guy in the robe?
Here's Friar Nick Mundy.
Oh, okay.
Oh, love it.
Perfect.
Love it. But yeah, so that's what we would have gotten. We would have gotten a romantic relationship between Harley and Deadshot, which I think could have been very interesting considering there is the Joker of it all. That would have obviously been like, Harley breaking out, becoming her own thing. And I think necessarily if you have a romance between characters, you wind up learning something, hopefully, different about those two characters. So yeah, that could be very interesting. As far as reshoots or anything goes, we don't know for sure. Money does a lot of things. I don't know that Will Smith would come back for a reshoot, but who knows?
I think Danielle, you and David Ayer see sex very differently.
You mean from you wouldn't have, you mean it wouldn't have just been the two of them like back in an alley next to Slipknot's corpse, just like grinding on each other to like feel the pressure. Go play the game, we'll test ya. Just like insane. You don't think that would have been how that sex scene goes?
What was the comedy they did together? It was focus.
Yes.
The key thing,
right? And they were hot.
They were hot.
No Prodigy, though.
They were and continue to be hot. Yeah. But no Prodigy. And it wasn't in a disgusting back alley next to the corpse of Slipknot.
Well, and according to
everybody's got their King Spencer, don't they?
Yeah. No, I'm saying release that version.
That movie, the day was its enemy. So let's just roll with the Prodigy puns. The deciding factor for me is that Diablo lives. Because I was already annoyed that so many people lived in a movie called Suicide Squad. And the fact that in his version, another person survived, I can't condone that.
A real fire start. Yeah. Diablo was a real fire starter in that movie. That's another Prodigy pun, right?
I'm very proud. I'm very proud of it.
I'm setting it to hyper speed and getting out of here. Sorry, that's earlier.
Okay, last one.
But I mean, it's great because when Will Smith is like, what are we, some kind of Suicide Squad? Diablo can be like, no, I want to live.
I want to live.
All right, Ryan, we're going to go to the people in just a moment, so have some things ready. But now the time has come to cast your vote, to vote for release the cut or cut the cut of David Ayer's Suicide Squad, and I am going to vote. First of all, I think there's some really fun aspects of that movie. I honestly do. There's a lot in terms of the editing and the construction, to Censor's point, that's a little bit confusing. I think you go either way with it. Either you make it the sensible cut that's just a well-constructed, makes sense cut, but that could just be very, very boring, Spencer, or just go batshit. Make it even more insane, and that's okay with me. The deciding factor for me is the fact that the director himself wants to do it. Let's see what you got, Air. Release the cut. Let's see what you got.
If it is the Prodigy cut where it's just like nothing makes sense and everything is crazy, then that's the one that I would want.
Yes.
So if we're getting the cut where it is full on David Ayer and it's just, look, this thing looks cool. This thing looks cool. Look, that guy's on fire. That girl's doing aerials off of a helicopter. I would rather see balls out crazy. Because the character stuff, as much as that's what I like about the comic, that's not what that dude does. So don't give me things that you don't do. Give me the thing that you do as hard as you do it. Why do I keep? I gotta stop.
Yeah, do yourself so hard.
Do yourself so hard.
You know
I
what?
don't think so. I don't know. I'm really split down the middle of this, but I'm going to edge towards no. I don't want more Suicide
Are you
Squad out in
edging?
the world.
I got to stop.
Oh, come on. And I've been holding back from making a Deadshot sex scene joke that would really be gross. Just imagine the aim on that guy. But
Shooting up the club. I have to stop.
Neither one of you is holding back in this scenario. Okay, Ryan, give us some of the things from the peoples.
The people's all actually were in the chat voting on their own for cut or release. It seems pretty split. It's hard for me to tell which side they're on at once.
So what do we do?
I don't know. I don't know how to count them all up. It seems a lot of cut. It's a lot of people are saying cut the cut. So I would anecdotally say that they're going cut the cut, but it's close.
Been outvoted by the people.
Yeah. At one quarter, Canadian says, I don't remember these characters enough to make a judgment on Harley and Deadshot, but from the idea alone, nah, I'm good. I don't need that. At Panther just says, can we get this going now, and just wants to release New Mutants. So they don't even care about Suicide Squad. At Jason Dolan says, the Ayer cut will definitely happen at some point. Might be nice to let it coincide with the HBO Max premiere of the Suicide Squad 2, or just titled The Suicide Squad, James Gunn's version, which comes out in 2022. And then this is just, I would quote myself, but this is just the point I was thinking of, is just that, we think about when Marvel cuts out like directors early in filming and takes that PR hit. You would never see this with certain Marvel movies because a director would never get far enough into the process to have their own cut of a movie. And it's interesting to me to see the different calculations where Marvel kind of takes the bad PR early, and then DC sometimes has to deal with the mess a little bit later of these directors that maybe Feige would have just maybe fired halfway through the process and never gotten this far. I just think it's interesting to see how the two studios go about it differently and where they take their hits.
Yeah, where's the Patty Jenkins Thor cut?
Well, to be fair though, that's a good point, Ryan. Thank you for quoting yourself, and thank you guys for your great comments. Even though you outvoted me and Danielle, so we're gonna cut the cut on the Suicide Squad. It has been said forever. Sorry, David Ayer. We are actually the final deciders.
We'll always have dark blue, buddy.
We
bright too.
Oh God. So we certainly will. Hey, on the Marvel point though, I think one of the things that's notable and interesting about that, or that we've talked about, is that those movies, ostensibly speaking, other than a few, have functioned more like a television series where the showrunner really is the one in charge and directors come in. So the DC films, for better or for worse, often for better, are very, very, very different than that. They each have their own distinct tone, and they really are seemingly more the studio. Of course, the studio is always going to be the one running the show, but also more of the director saying, there's no Feige there, is what I'm saying. To ultimately have the control anyway. So you don't notice as much with a Marvel film because you kind of know that he's the one ultimately running the show anyway. Okay, we're moving on.
Someone in the chat did point out Edgar Wright's Ant-Man, which I think is the learning moment for them, but I think that's a fair counterpoint from the chat. Someone did say that, hey, Edgar Wright's Ant-Man cut, I want to see that. So that's fair enough.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they just didn't get far enough along. Like they'd have to shoot it.
Right.
Yeah. So, all right. That's not the only movie, though, where the director, the studio, many movies, the studio releases a version of the film that the director isn't totally happy with. One,
every movie.
Like every movie.
Yeah.
Not everyone, but many of them. Joe, talk to us about The Breakfast Club.
talk about the Breakfast Club. There's a rumored Hughes cut of the Breakfast Club that I think was like 2 hours long. That apparently Hughes talked about that it existed in an interview a little while back, and so it's taken off since then. The Criterion Collection has about 50 minutes worth of deleted scenes from the movie. But apparently, like, that's not even like the total, sort of scope of what Hughes originally wanted to do with the Breakfast Club. It was a lot darker. I feel like the story with most of these is that it was going to be darker, but there was a lot more with the janitor character, like the weird, omniscient janitor that lives in their basement of the school, who sort of like has heart-to-hearts with the kids and predicts where they're going to be in 25 years. He sort of tells the kids to deal with the reality that Bender's probably going to kill himself after being a drug addict, and Claire's just going to marry a successful guy that's going to hate her, and this and that. A little more with like Bender's dad. And thank you, Futurama. Every time I say the word Bender out loud, I'm convinced I'm saying the wrong character's name and accidentally talking about a robot.
Pitch how what you're saying about the changes in Breakfast Club 2 also apply to Alien 3, and then you'll have the movie that I will burn things for.
Right? But like, there's like, they discover like a copy of, they discover like some Prince records in a teacher's locker and realize their teachers are human. What? Stuff like that. So yeah, that's the opus of the Breakfast Club cut from John Hughes.
I don't want 2 hours of the Breakfast Club. That's that is officially Brunch Club. Like, I don't want that. That is Bottomless Mimosa Club. I don't want 2 hours of that at all.
No, that's like 8 Ball Club, 8 Ball in the Alley Club. Like that makes that ending shot very, 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 very depressing. Very real, but not in a way that I want from the Breakfast Club at all. And, it was aimed at kids. You're basically telling the children that are watching your movie, like, anyway, your life's gonna suck. Own it now.
Yeah, totally. I think there's there's a bit of a difference between like for whatever reason the studio like took your movie to a screeching halt and went another direction and stuff like that, and then just a director having their version of their film where they didn't kill their darlings for the good of pacing and tone, because a bleak Breakfast Club doesn't work. I think the reasons why the heart of the movie hits is because it's a good mix and a good balance.
Yeah. I think we're all aligned, right? Like,
cut that cut
down, cut the cut. What is the chat saying? Anything different?
They're definitely more on the cut side of this one too. At Matthew McGuire. So why touch this? No thanks. I think that speaks pretty well.
All right, well stated. Spencer, talk to us about them aliens. Do we want to see more of them aliens?
Yeah, do we? Well, there's an Alien 3, I guess a Fincher cut could exist. David Fincher famously took on the job, I believe it was his first film, and he was kind of in over his head. The script was being written as they were shooting. It was a big hot mess, and frankly, it's kind of a miracle that you just ended up with a below average Alien movie rather than one of the worst films of all time. So props to him. But I guess, so reading here, there's the assembly cut on the Blu-ray is more like David Fincher's original version, though released without his direct involvement. Notable differences were establishing material and character building for the inmates, including more of a subplot about one inmate worshiping and freeing the alien. Okay, I assume he's still killed off Newt, Hicks, and Bishop and stuff like that. And that's still the movie. But discuss it. I guess, are we imagining that we could bring David Fincher back willingly to recut this movie, or do we just want to see that assembly cut on the Blu-ray?
No, I think we have to live in a slightly imagined world where he's going to come back and make a 10-episode Netflix series arc out of whatever that originally was, and not kill Newt.
Yeah.
Can that be a thing that we demand?
Yeah, or like all of the beloved characters from Aliens.
Go ahead.
Please, Joe. No, please.
Undermine
I've seen
Alien aliens. Like, anyway, go ahead.
Well, no, like I feel like we've already seen what he would do now with that thing, and I don't like it.
Well, wait, how so?
Well, no, I just like I don't think I don't know. I don't know that I want I loved Aliens. Everyone loves Aliens. I think that Aliens 3 I'm okay with, especially when you get that deep into a franchise. I don't need it to be, you don't need to fix something that deep into a franchise. I think that 2 was like, fine. There are no answers I need from Alien 3. Like, I don't need it to answer any questions or anything burning that I had. I'm good with it not being made.
As long as it doesn't shake up the canon leading into Alien Resurrection, honestly, I'm fine. A perfect film that I love. Roth, I think that's actually kind of a cool idea. Like, imagine David Fincher. Obviously, you'd have to bring in a new cast to sort of stand in for everyone, but I kind of like the idea of David Fincher now, who very few people are probably going to say no to, being able to redo that one. Just from the ground up is kind of awesome.
Yeah. I think we're living in a very different reality. So we're not talking about releasing, although I like David Fincher enough as a director that I'd be curious if he just got a shit ton of dailies, what he would do with that, I'd be curious to see that too. But either version, the fake one where he does a Netflix series, or the one where he just gets a bunch of dailies and then redoes it, would be interesting for me to see. Even if it's not good, it's just be interesting.
I would much rather like a Netflix like long series than him try to do anything with the dailies, because that becomes one of those things where it's like, I think it is too tempting to reshoot, and then you get into that whole de-aging and weirdness thing. I would rather just like you go and you make your Netflix series and you tell the story that way. And even if it meant recasting, or if it meant like, oh well, Resurrection takes place a long time in the future and that's why Newt's dead. Okay, cool. Like that's way better for me. I don't know.
I mean, it's never going to happen, because he just refuses to have anything to do with this film or speak about it. He's not on the DVD commentary. Like, he doesn't. It's not a thing of his. But if we could hold somebody he loves hostage or whatever and make him go back to his first film, I think that'd be an interesting thing that I would watch from any director, to go back to their first movie. We
should make everyone do their first movie.
Yeah.
We could hold him hostage.
Or him, yeah.
I say release the remake. That's my vote.
I will say, like, there are some directors like
monster, Spencer.
Yeah. Kevin Smith would still just make Clerks. Like, there are some directors who would still just make like that movie, like their first movie.
Some would argue that Kevin Smith has just made Clerks, like a bunch. Hey, Ryan, what are they saying in the chat? Because I think we're voting release the cut that's a totally different version of the cut, but also remade and it's a Netflix show.
Some people want it. Jason Todd and John Bainbridge say release it. Some others don't, are a little bit more mixed on it. Matt McComas, who I think was talking about the producer's cut, already said it's a slightly better version, I guess. And then at Joe the Knave says, I mean, I think we already have the assembly cut, so what's the problem? It's a little bit mixed on that one.
Yeah.
I don't know. We just like, there's no problem. Fair point. We just like talk about stuff. I think we're going to vote our own way on this and say release the Netflix series that didn't get made.
Yeah, release the remake.
Release the Kraken.
We just wanted to play that clip.
That's so shiny. Look at that.
All right, we have 1 release the cut and 2 no cut. Let's see how we go with Josh Trank. Fantastic Four. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. The cut of all the cuts, the mama bear of cuts in some respects. This is the massive. First of all, Danielle, I think we could go for hours on the wig work in that movie. I know I could, because it makes me insane. 2 things that make me insane: bad wig work, and when a character is meant to be in a time period or a place in their life where they would not have painted nails and they have a perfect manicure. Do not like. Okay, the point is this. Massive reshoot said to be mainly focused on the second half of the movie. This was overseen reportedly more by Simon Kinberg than Trank. I mean, it was. They had a terrible relationship. There was a lot of reports in the story, in the press, about how Trank was hard to work with. This ostensibly lost him his Star Wars gig. Notable differences. There's not a ton of information out there saying, other than the actor saying that it was much better and much darker. Once again, we do know that the idea, or we have heard rumor that the idea was that it was meant to be like a body horror, much more like a body horror film that was about what would it be if your body was physically transformed in the way the way that happened for these people. Like, what would that really feel like and look like? What would that do to them psychologically and emotionally? All of which I find pretty fascinating to think about. There was a difference in Doom's relationship with them. There were a few notable differences. And so here's one thing to keep in mind. Most of me is like, yeah, I want to see that. I just want to see what that is, whether it's good or works or not. I'm just sort of curious about the idea of a superhero body horror. But he doesn't want it. So I'm very, very, very torn, because I guess we've just been talked about forced creativity, but I don't know. Thoughts?
I also think that superhero body horror is really interesting, and I think that was done very well when they did this comic book called Planetary, where they take a bunch of tropes and different characters and teams, and they kind of remixed them to explore like the darker side of what that would be. I think with Fantastic Four, we have not had one that really captures the spirit of Fantastic Four. And so I'm very huge on the thing is, before you can deconstruct the thing, you have to construct the thing. And Fantastic Four hasn't had a version on film yet that is the Fantastic Four that is true to what that story is. So while it would be interesting to see like superhero body horror in any way, I think you have to nail a Fantastic Four movie first before you can say, okay, but what would it be like if it was like really messed up for all of them and not just Ben Grimm? Like if Ben Grimm wasn't the only one going through that.
Can I ask one quick follow-up question about that? And this is a real question. Why hire Josh Trank to do that movie? Like, why would you not have hired Peyton Reed to actually capture the essence of the Fantastic Four? Like, they didn't commit. Warner Brothers did not commit. If they had committed, and if that's what they really wanted, which I think would have been great to see, you would have hired Peyton Reed. But no,
wasn't it Fox at that point?
Fox.
It was Fox. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I think that's the
Warner Brothers. Totally unfair. You're right.
That's the reasoning, was that they wanted to separate themselves from Marvel at the time. Is to be like, no, this isn't your happy PG, goofy movie, and also trying to separate themselves from the last time they tried to make Fantastic Four movies with Eoin Gruffudd and Chris Evans and stuff like that were like goofy cartoons. I like I like the first half of Fanforstic. I think they are pulling off the body horror element really well, and then it's like the Poochie episode. It's just like 6 months later, and then it becomes a completely different movie for the back half that contradicts everything in tone and plot and makes no sense and sucks. But I wish that he actually finished the movie, and I hope he does in the future, and I would watch it.
He just made the Al Capone pooping and farting movie, which is interesting. But I agree. Like he's probably not. If you're going a Fantastic Four like true to the comics version, no. If you really want to explore the body version or horror version, I think it's great. I would much rather see him again, like do a Planetary or do something where it's like we are taking all, because I think that this is the time for something like that now. You couldn't do, because I remember when Planetary first came out and people were like, they should make a movie. They should do this. It's like, no, because the superhero, overarching, it's a whole thing now, genre of movies was not at a place where you could do that. I think you could do something like that now where you say, hey, you're familiar with all of these different things. What if we, turned it on its head and made it a little twisted and made it a little alty? And then you can kind of appreciate like seeing a different version of these characters and these tropes that you've already seen. So yeah, I wouldn't want a Fantastic Four. I would want something like a Planetary from him. I think that would be really interesting and cool.
Oh, I think that's a great point, Danielle and Joe. I want to hear your thoughts on this as well, because maybe maybe they just ultimately, the problem was, thank you, Fox. I love you, Warner Brothers. I was just kissing your butt about HBO Max too. But they chose maybe the wrong, thank you, Ryan. I got a hand clap. They chose maybe the wrong characters to do this with, right? Like, and maybe that's where the actual disconnect came in.
Yeah, and it's like if you choose the director who that's like what like that's what he wants to do, you either go through it and you let him see it through to the end, but it does definitely sound like midway through they're like, oh no, like this is, it's like, well, yeah, like that's who you hired, and that's what, obviously, like it's not like the first time you saw the script that was what was kind of pitched as the idea, so you go through with it. Or anytime it's been one of those things where halfway through they're like, ooh, oh no, let's bring someone else in. It does always, like Spencer says, it's just all like spit and duct tape and like a new coat of paint, and it's like, no, but all that other stuff was still underneath.
Well, Joe, we're going to talk about this in the next one up as well. But I mean, at the end of the day, I think that's a lot of times my big question is where if you didn't want that thing, then why did you hire the people that were going to do that thing? So you need to vote Joe Starr.
Yeah, you know, I think it was there was a need to stand out from Marvel, but I think that need was very misguided. And I think you sort of combine that with, we've got the hot young director that did that hot Chronicle movie that everybody loved, so this is can't miss. And look, I don't think we should ever be beholden to an IP or a property. And you know, I preach all the time on here that I hate like IP bingo in a movie. Like, okay, Avengers Endgame has accomplished the following things I was expecting from a Thanos story, you know, that kind of thing. But there's still a DNA to them at their core. And that's why I just don't think, you know, if you take something like the Fantastic Four and go, what if instead of something about, you know, family and hope and optimism, this was a sick, like body horror, like you know, Sue Storm's mouth is they're all tied to each other like a Fantastic Four centipede, baby. Like, oh, like I think once you start really digging at chipping away at like what the core of something is, that's when you really start to lose me. So I'm going to say cut the cut.
All right, guys, it's we have a vote for cut the cut. I'm also, you've convinced me, Joe and Danielle, cut the cut, but do this idea for a different group of characters eventually and let the director do their thing. Maybe even if it's not this director. Those 3 cut the cut. Spencer, will the people stand with you?
Ooh, let's find out. Yeah, release that cut. Come on, people.
What are the people saying, Ryan?
There's definitely a wave of release the cut when we first mentioned it, but I also think there's a lot of cut the cut because people understand that Trank has come out and said that there's no need for it. By the way, I'm supposed to put that quote in the script. The quote is just, he said, no need to a fan's request for it. So I think people are also aware, both with the Marvel version coming and also with the story of Trank and all that kind of stuff, that they're cutting the cut for personal reasons. But I do think that chat was definitely interested in the idea of seeing what Fan Four Stick was trying to be, for sure. There was interest in the creative of it. Raul Rodriguez, I think, makes a good point of also pointing out that back in 2015, they were desperate to make sure they retain those rights, which often is a through line of Fantastic Four movies. So, you know, maybe they hear one good pitch from Trank and that's it, and they go. So I think that was a good point that he brought that up. Yeah. Langdon Robert says, we already have Chronicle. That's better than Fan Four Stick. So let's just move on. Let Feige work his magic instead. Let's see. Super Dan says, I'm interested just strictly out of curiosity. But if the guy himself doesn't want it, and since all Fantastic Four movies suck, I don't really care to see the Trank cut anyways. And also there was some love for the original Fantastic Four movies. At My Kabir says, I didn't really hate the Jessica Alba, Chris Evans Fantastic Four movies. I also didn't hate them when I first saw them. So I agree with her.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for chiming in. Hi, Raul. And that's a really great point that you made too, about a lot of times with many movies, but particularly it's been for the Fantastic Four, in order to hold on to the rights, they've had to make something. And I think, Spencer, was it you and I that pitched that Deadpool 2 just be called Deadpool Kills the Fantastic Four? And at the start of the movie, he kills the Fantastic Four, and that's how they retain the rights.
No, but that's maybe that sounds funny. Yeah, I'll claim it.
Why didn't we just do that, people? Done.
Back when they were both at Fox.
Executive? Why am I not a studio executive? These are the choices. All right, we have 2 more to go through, and they are in the same universe. Danielle, set us up, and I think we're all going to be on the same page on the second one and this one, which is release the cut, but we'll see. Go for it.
Yeah, so I have been tasked to do the Star Wars stories, Rogue One and Solo. So Rogue One, we know Tony Gilroy was brought in to do these huge rewrites, look over direction. A lot of it focused on retooling the third act, and then with Solo, the huge story, Lord and Miller wound up being replaced after most of the movie was shot. Ron Howard came in, did some reshoots. He is the only credited director, and obviously, you know, as we know, one thing about Rogue One, that, you know, I believe like there was like more action and things really put into the third act. With Solo, it was really about the humor, because that is what Lord and Miller does, and so it was felt like maybe this was too much of a comedy. It didn't feel like it was Star Wars, and so Ron Howard was brought in, bless you, to do more of to bring it back into what was felt to be more of a Star Wars movie, and get rid of a lot of the Lord and Miller quirks and the humor and what it is that they do. I am full on. I want Rogue One. I liked the way that it is, and I don't know that I'd be interested in seeing it, but I'm not hardcore like yes, the cut has to be released. But I'm on board. Like, go ahead and see it. I'd like to see what the original idea of it was. Solo, I'm hardcore. Every single part of me wants to see the Lord and Miller's like Solo. Like in my bones, I want to see what that movie looked like.
I think probably a lot of folks too. We're going to get into this and we are going to discuss, but first, Joe Starr is going to do our daily callouts.
Sure. Hey guys, we got some stuff for you to watch today. We got to watch this on Friends. You like Friends? You want other stuff to watch like Friends? We got some suggestions for other stuff that you should watch. It's a lot like Friends. It's called Watch This, Friends. It's up now. We dropped it at 10. You can look at it. We also got a Friends Honest trailer. There's a theme this week. The theme is Friends.
Friendship.
The theme is friendship. It's real good. You should also watch that. And our Greg Nicotero Hey Fandom is Friday, right after SJU. We have a link to RSVP in the description. Jump in. These have been a ton of fun. You can ask your questions of zombies and practical effects and Walking Dead and how to make Hollywood magic. And anytime we've done stuff with Nicotero, he's always an awesome guest. So that's going to be super fun. And we really hope that you guys will check it out. And all of this is in support of Direct Relief. They are coordinating with public health authorities, nonprofit orgs, and businesses in the U.S., China, and globally to provide PPE and essential medical items to health workers who are responding to the coronavirus. We've got a link in the description there as well. If you can't donate, please share the link, spread the word, spread the good news about Direct Relief. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Joe. And
Thank you, Joe.
To clarify one thing really, really quickly about Greg Nicotero, life moves pretty quick, you guys. If you don't stop to smell the roses, schedules change. So this is changing as we speak from Thursdays to Friday. So that's why I'm making that real clear. It'll say in your assets, and it'll say when you click that link Thursday, it's actually on Friday. We're updating it right meow.
Yeah, and if I can say one quick thing, because I've had a couple of people have asked, because they've said, you know, I was there for the Hey Fandom, and I wanted to go back and look at it, and I couldn't find it on the channel. Guys, we post highlights of all of the Hey Fandoms. You can find them on Fandom. So if you're looking for the highlights of those, you can find them. They are around.
You can also find the full show. So what happens after we do the live event is that our editorial team goes back and writes an article about it. You can find highlight clips in that article, and posted at the bottom of the article is the full show for your enjoyment. So please do go watch some of these. They have been awesome. Danielle is such a great host. Eric is such an awesome host. We're so lucky to have them on our team. But now we are going to put you to the task of release the cut. So I think we should vote separately on this, to be fair. 100%. I want to see what Miller and Lord would have done. I think, Joe, we've talked before about getting a little curmudgeon-y and having ideas about what a Star Wars movie really is and should be. And in that sense, I understand kind of the change that they made there, the tonal change, because Miller and Lord are commenting on, right? I could make an argument that so is in a very different manner, so is Rian Johnson, but that's for a different discussion for a different date.
I think that's what they were trying to avoid, because this was right on the heels of Last Jedi, and they're like, people don't want to talk about Star Wars, they want Star Wars.
Yeah, I think they were trying to avoid that as well, and I actually as controversial as it is, and as safe as the Ultimate movie was, I understand the decision making, but out of curiosity, I just want to see what they did. I really, 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 really want to release that.
Especially after Into the Spider-Verse, because I feel like that, I mean, Into the Spider-Verse did comment on what it means to be Spider-Man and who gets to be Spider-Man, but I don't feel like it did it in such a way where it was a disconnect. I actually feel like it did it in such a way where it was incredibly like sweet and wholesome, and it made anyone feel like anyone could be ultimately Spider-Man and take up the mantle. And so while it was something that did comment on what it means to be that hero, I think that you came out of it feeling like you were watching a Spider-Man movie. You didn't come out of it feeling like you were watching, you know, a parody or anything. I feel like it still came out very genuine and very sincere.
Agreed, 100%. Yeah. All right. So that's two release the cuts. Joe Starr, Spencer Gilbert.
Oh yeah, release that cut. And I don't care if it spits in the face of everything you think Han Solo was, because my problem with Solo is like, if it's an origin story, like that guy was born as Han Solo. The movie we got, he became Han Solo after a long and storied youth of already being Han Solo. Like, I want to see him as a nerd.
How he got his gun, Spencer.
Yeah, but now we technically know where he got his pistol. Like, I want to see him like a fumbling goofus. I want to see him, someone hand him his vest and him throw it derisively off over his shoulder off a cliff. And everyone gasps and says, how can Han Solo throw away his vest? He has too much respect for the vest. My whole childhood was based on loving that vest. How dare he?
A scoundrel should know better. A scoundrel's vest deserves more respect.
So yeah, if I'm going to see where Han Solo began, I don't want it. I want it to be different than where he ends up. And I don't think that's the movie we got. And I think that's where Lord Miller hopefully would have taken us. So I say release that cut.
Joe Starr.
Yeah, you know, if they... I mean, among a million issues of the Howard cut of Solo is that it felt like a very rushed, last second, please save our movie cut of Solo. Like, just the whole thing just felt jarring and weird and just sort of running at full speed and nothing meant a whole lot. And if the Lord and Miller cut means that movie feels less like corporately mandated plot beats, like we need X, Y, and Z because they're going to sell popsicles at Galaxy's Edge, or, you know, whatever, which is what just so much of that movie felt like to me. Yeah, I want to release that cut.
All right. So there.
Release the Kraken.
Kraken. Release that, biatch.
Play it
We're
again.
gonna talk about Rogue One really.
Release the Kraken.
Yeah!
Rogue One. I don't need it. Anybody else?
The third act was the best part of Rogue One. Why would you want to change around that?
The last 5 minutes of the third act are some of the best minutes in Star Wars. So if it means we lose that, I don't want it. If it means we lose all that Darth Vader stuff, don't want it.
Joe Starr.
It seemed like I've always been really interested in this one too because of just it seems like the beats are the same, but like for whatever reason Disney didn't like how they went about it. So this one's always been interesting to me because it was always going to be the Dirty Dozen, we all die, saving the thing, ending. But you know, there were like 40 or 50 scenes and shots people were calling out to from trailers that didn't make the original cut of the movie. I enjoy a lot of Rogue One. I don't like the we've got to push this button before this countdown so that we can push that button before this countdown before ultimately we blow up before we push the button in this countdown sort of aspect. Like I thought there was a little too much of that. So maybe if some of that got cleaned up in the original cut, you know, there are all the shots of them actually having the thing, you know, the thing. The Death Star plans and running with them and stuff like that. So I enjoy Rogue One too, but I'd be interested to see the different interpretation of the same thing, if that makes sense.
It does. Ryan, let's hear a little bit from the people and then we got to wrap this baby up because I got a noon meeting. It's about frantic content.
Here, have mixed feelings both for Solo and for Rogue One. Itachi Uchiha says that they prefer a Solo series on Disney Plus, but would still say release it overall. Mo Mula says Lord Miller cut had humor not suited for Han's character, so that's a note for them. At Stephen H says Lord Miller is the perfect tonally for Spider-Man, but they're just too zany for Star Wars in their opinion. So Solo, we had some notes to it. I will quote Billy Business, who took to this on Twitter and said that he loves Solo. It's ranked pretty high on his Star Wars ranking list, that he just actually wants to make Solo 2 happen. And I did see some chat comments as well of that, who just want to see stuff from what the world building of Solo set up, maybe not necessarily a redo of Solo 1, but they like some of the characters. I saw someone in chat asking to know what happens to Kira as an example.
All right, well, there you have it, different opinions. But as everybody knows, the final word on Hollywood happens right here in this Zoom meeting.
Oh, and also the chat has been doing...
Sorry, you're getting it. Whether you want it or not, you're getting the cut.
Release the cut.
Release the cut.
Release the Kraken.
Roth has to go. Bye, everyone.